So what's happening here is it's called a secured loan. So this can be for buying goods like this, or most commonly it's used for lending money. So in this case, the clothes that John T wants to buy are not his until all the money's been paid off. That's important to note first of all. And a secured loan is where the consumer, so John T, borrows money and lists the property as security. So actually lists it. So there's a big screen TV, there's a nice car, things like that. It's not just a general sort of I get all your stuff. But if the repayments aren't met, then the goods can be repossessed, so taken back off you. And the goods can then be on-sold, and I'll go into that in a bit more later. And if it doesn't pay off the debt, the consumer might still owe money after all that as well.
And about this interest thing, I can explain that. A credit contract must include key information, or the contract may not be enforceable, and the creditor may face penalties as well. The contract has to have all the key information you would expect it to have.
That's right, John T, and I'll just list it off for you, actually. So when you're looking at a contract for loaning money, these are the things to check out on the contract. So just look at the full name and the address of the creditor, so that's Hayley in this scenario. Any initial unpaid balance, so what you owe, basically. The amount and the number of payments, so how long is it going to take to pay off as well. The interest charges and how they'll be calculated. Any other fees, sort of administration fees, fees for sending out letters, things like that. Charges for any early payments, so if you want to pay it off early, there might be a fee for that one. What happens if you don't actually pay, and a statement of your rights to cancel the contract. So that's just a basic list of all the things you should look at for your contract.
Okay, so all of that should be in a disclosure statement that's clear and so that a reasonable person could understand it. It should also be provided within 5 working days.
Exactly, and if you have any questions about this, then ask your lender while you're there. And if you're not happy with it, then please just don't sign the contract. You could be getting into a lot of trouble there.
So what about the interest rate charged? Is 40% okay?
Look, it depends on what we're talking about, but interest is actually not limited in the law, which is quite surprising. For one, it cannot be charged in advance, so there's that. And it cannot change as a result of a breach of contract, so say you don't keep up your payments, you can't, you can have an interest that does change when you don't keep up your payments, but it can't change throughout the contract, is what I'm trying to say. And you'll also note that the contract will have fees on it. So fees must be told to you at the outset that there's an administration fee, there's a fee for setting up the contract, etc. And these all must be reasonable, and they can't actually exceed the cost of the setup. The other thing to that is that third-party fees cannot be marked up by the creditor. So say Hayley goes and talks to a collection agency to go and get your stuff. They can't sort of claim that against them for Hayley as well. And the other thing is that prepayment fees, they must also be reasonable.
I'll just add to that. A consumer can cancel a credit contract up to 3 days after receiving the disclosure statement, which must be in writing as well.
That's right, and if they've taken the possession of the goods, only the credit part is cancelled. So the goods still have to be paid for within 15 days. So it's awfully complicated, and I hope I'll take it through a bit slower and a bit carefully for you guys. If you've got any questions, of course, then feel free to ring us back at the office at 835-2130, and we can take it through in a bit more detail. So we'll catch up with what's in the news for now, and we'll get back and we'll take you through what happens when something awful comes up and you just can't pay for the instalments in your contract. Leading the news in the world of the law today is the Family Court Review. I would encourage any listeners out there interested in the family court and any sort of family issues, in fact, that this is a discussion document currently available for comment in the public domain, and I'd urge everyone to get involved in that process. I can't overstate this enough. It's going to be a massive change in the Family Court of New Zealand. It's really, really important to people out there, everyone, I think. Of all the courts that we do have at the moment, we are most likely to visit the family court statistically at some point in our lives, so its makeup is very important to us. The review is proposing a lot of changes, a lot of groundbreaking changes, including the possibility of using a user pays system. So we can't get away from the recent figures published stating that cost of the family court has gone up by 63% over the past 6 years, without much more people actually coming to the court. So it's really, really urgent that changes go through. But it's an important review. And please contact us and tell us what you think about it. Also, there was an election a couple of weeks ago, and the National Party won in a landslide. This affects everyone in a major way over the next 3 years, and I hope our listeners actually went out and voted this time. News is coming through that nearly 1 million people did not vote on Saturday, which is really awful. It would seem to be just terrible. I'm sure there are many reasons why one wouldn't vote, but the fact remains that voting is one of the best ways you can change the law of this country. Finally, having a look at our figures on numbers coming through the clinic door in the morning, we've still got an alarming amount of people out there with employment issues. It really is staggering how many people we've got come in that have been unfairly dismissed, have been made redundant, all these sort of issues. So this highlights two things really. Firstly, the